Obviously, I mean, pretty much everyone is aware that there was a terrorist attack in Brussels. Um, there, I mean, there's still, of course, tons that we won't even know, you know. But what we do know is that there was at least one suicide bomber. There were two explosions in the departure area of the Brussels airport and killed, I believe it was 10 people at 8 a.m. their time, 3 a.m. our time. And then there was another explosion in a subway station in central Brussels that killed about 20 people. And they're estimated, the last I checked, about 230 or so were among the wounded. There's some indication, I guess, that the Islamic State has taken responsibility. Um, the attack, I guess, has an interesting timing. It's just a few days after the arrest of one of the main people involved in the Paris attacks from last year. So, I mean, of course, there's the story is ongoing, and when I was talking with my dad about it earlier this evening, he was asking me, were we going to talk about it all night? He was cracking a joke. My dad doesn't has off humor, but I think it's definitely important to acknowledge when these events happen, and we talk about the facts as we know them. But I saw a really interesting post that we need to take our cue from the people of Brussels. Um, how they're responding, reacting. When things like this happen, we get so immediately angry. We're ready to go take action and do something. But I saw a picture of people. I think it was chalk, maybe, just people coming together in a square area in Brussels, drawing, just that outpouring of coming together in love and support. And no, I'm not naive to think that you can, peace and love and it'll make the terrorists go away. But at the same time, we really need to be smart about how we respond, about the things that we say, the way we react. Obviously, there are those on the right who come out with outlandish statements like we need to patrol Muslim neighborhoods and very, very excessive things like that. And one thing to keep in mind is that while we have national attention when attacks like this happen, whether it's in Brussels or Paris, if it's someplace in London, when it's something of European origin to some extent, we have all this media coverage, right? And not saying that other things do not get coverage, but they do not get the same attention nor international outpour. When we have a bombing in Kenya or Nigeria, or we have some issue that happens in Southeast Asia or Central America, we don't necessarily have the same, oh my God, we all have to act. So we need to really keep in mind, the value we're placing on life when we're choosing to be more concerned about some events versus others. The other thing I think that we need to keep in mind when we're making these generalizations about all Muslims or all Arabs do this is that we're looking at Islamic State, when we're looking at ISIS in particular, most of their victims, overwhelming majority of their victims, are people who would identify as Muslim or Arab. And this is something that I don't think, the very repressive ways of going about, exerting influence in the Western world. And I just think that we need to really have a good handle on world events. We need to have a good handle on the things that kind of trigger and lead to these. I mean, there is a global political climate that these incidences happen within, right? So we need to not just, we're going to do whatever it takes and just go over there and blow them all up and everything will be fine. I mean, we've been in this quagmire, of Middle Eastern terrorism in this more recent phase, since 9/11, so to speak. And while it hasn't, necessarily impacted us here on the U.S. soil since then, it has definitely had its own impact with the rest of the world. So, I mean, this is definitely a time to be calm. I think I just got a comment from Twitter that, people in Belgium, people in Brussels are urging for calmness. People are urging for restraints and taking their time. I mean, I obviously can't speak for everyone, but this is not the time to feed into Islamophobia at all. I mean, that's exactly what they, for whatever reason, that's what these people who do these attacks, that's what they want. They want the West to hate Muslims. They want, because, you know, in their twisted psyche, that will drive people to them and to their cause, and when it's really doing, you know, the opposite. So I really think that we need to just, you know, be easy. Something that's bothered me ever since September 11th is when things like this happen. Obviously, it's important and it needs to be covered, but when it's just wall to wall, like, oh my God, this is everything. You know, as also as everyone knows, President Obama is on a historic trip to Cuba right now, right? It's like huge. It's huge, right? Um, and and again, I've been at work all day, so you know, I try to keep up with the news on lunch breaks and stuff like that. But my dad was off, and he was filling me in a little bit, and he was just saying, you know, he was watching the president's speech to the Cuban people earlier today on MSNBC, and then they went to a split screen of coverage from what was happening in Brussels. Again, it's not that what happened in Brussels is not important, but it's not that we really know anything like breaking new in that short period of time that it warranted cutting out on the president, or you know, kind of minimizing the screen on him. So I really think that, you know, we need more balance in the media across the board on so many different levels. You know, it is equally important for us to hear not only the message that President Obama had to the Cuban people today, but also, you know, other international news. You know, what is the response, you know, to his visit. I thought it was very interesting that, for example, that Raul Castro, you know, President Obama, you know how Americans are, we're right, so, you know, we got it all together. Was talking about some of the issues in terms of, you know, the need for democracy and human rights problems, and you know, President Castro said to him that not providing health, paraphrasing, not providing health care and education is a human rights violation. I thought that was pretty deep. I mean, there are other issues in terms of human rights violations to the United States. You know, we're out there policing the world, and the UN and other groups. I mean, from the way that our police handle issues, you know, the different police abuse cases, when we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, several, if not almost all the cases that are raised are in direct violation of international human rights laws. But no one ever wants to talk about that. It's whatever other country is doing and how they're not doing X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, so I just really think that as we're looking at the news, as we're engaging in dialogue and stuff, that we try to make sure that we're getting it like from a variety of sources. It's great that you tune in to hear me, or you tune in to hear Ben or whatever, but make sure that you're seeking out different sources, that you're informing yourself about the issues, because, you know, even though I think I'm great to listen to, and you know, Ben's awesome listening to Ben, and Niz is extremely knowledgeable as well, you know, we need to come to things with our own, you know, foundation and understanding for issues, and that helps us become more informed, that helps us become more engaged, and that helps us be able to express opinions and build on this work that we're trying to do, right? Because part of, you know, being a part of this movement, progressive army, part of supporting Senator Sanders is having this humanist view, this desire to do things better than they have been previously before. So that was just kind of my take on just kind of what's been going on. Another interesting article that I saw, they're still sticking kind of international for a little bit before I come back domestic.